I found myself over the last several weeks doing a lot of praying and reflecting, especially about the reality that life often brings us to places we do not wish to go. And as I began to review my own life through that lens, I realized that there were many times where I found myself pushed into situations that I would have rather not encountered. And they go from the gamut of those things that mimic death to actual death itself. And as you look at the contours, the ebbs and the flows of your life, I'm sure all of you can pinpoint those times yourselves. Life often places us in places we don't want to go. And life changes. Along with a reflection of those events and circumstances that have played out in my own life, I found myself then just reflecting on how the world has changed. And I don't consider myself old, although some may disagree with that comment. But even in the course of the span of my life, things have changed dramatically. I think back to the simplicity of childhood and hesitating to get too nostalgic. But those days not long ago when parents could allow their children to roam and go wherever they wished, to take their bikes from their house and simply go where they wanted to go that day as long as they came back for supper, without fear, no anxiety, and no worry. But yet we find ourselves living in a much different world today, where our community, our world, the way we do business, the way we structure life, and yes, even our church, is finding itself changing, developing, and moving. And in many ways, in places and in circumstances we rather would not go. And so many of us today find ourselves feeling those same feelings that are associated with change: loss, grief, anger, despair, abandonment, neglect, wonder, questions, and even the experience of deep loss and sadness. And so all of these feelings are a part of our experience of life. And as I look back on those times in my life where I was forced to encounter things I really did not want to encounter, all of those feelings were present as I journeyed through those events. But then, as we look back on things, as we look back on the course of our lives, there's an interesting twist that's brought to it all. Because I'm sure you will agree, as I think about my own journey, that as we go through these moments, we also realize that the person that we have become today would not be possible if it weren't for those experiences we so wanted to avoid. That in some crazy and profound way, those problems became part of the solution and brought us to a better place where we now find a different self. And it really is the mystery of the cross, happening over and over in our life as we go through events and times and changes and developments. The cross is a place that our Lord did not want to go. But yet in some twist, God was able to take that problem and make it part of the solution. And that's where the element of spiritual trust really begins to come in. If we look at some of the great mystics and saints of our times, I'm thinking of folks like St. Francis of Assisi, St. Teresa of Avila, St. John of the Cross, St. Maximilian Kolbe, and many countless others, and even St. Teresa of Calcutta. Folks who encountered the hardships and the difficulties and the trials and the disappointments of life, but they brought this peacefulness to it. Where did that come from? Well, it came from a place where they realized that all of that negativity, all of that fear, all of that anger cannot coexist with one's relationship with God. That one has to let go of that stuff and give that back to God and trust that as life carries us, so too God is carrying us. that we don't go through these experiences alone, that we have a powerful presence behind us, assisting and guiding us, even as we go through these things we would rather not encounter and be brought to places where we rather would not go. The whole key to spirituality and of coming to understand how God works in our lives is to realize that we must let go. That it is letting go and dying that we find ourselves rising and becoming. It's this wonderful cycle of life that God has built into things and is such a testimony to his presence and to his grandeur and to his power. So for all that we are feeling today and for all that is going on in our world and in our church, we encounter as real and whole people, and we're entitled to those feelings that we have as we journey through this time. But let us know and understand that we don't do this alone, that as our community grows and becomes, we are still able to receive and have the valuable source of the Eucharist, that place where God meets us in a very particular, intimate, and special way, where he enters our heart and claims us as his own, and reassures us time and time again that no matter how difficult life gets out there, in here, peace is always possible.